In the Know, a radio program talking to the newsmakers in Ogle, Lee, DeKalb counties and beyond, keeping you in the know. Here's your host, Charles Van Horn.
Good morning and happy Sunday. Joining us this morning, our special guest is going to be Illinois House Minority Leader Tony McCombie. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great. Glad to have you with us. Now, you are a very busy person, and a lot happens in Springfield. Of course, right now, it's sort of a time to go mingle with constituents and things like that, but still things going on. A lot of things with you. You got some bills that were signed this past week by the governor. We'll talk about that coming up. But first, a little bit about you. When did you get started in politics?
Well, I never thought in a million years I'd ever get involved in politics. It really started on a local level here in Savannah. I was on the city council and then became the mayor. And as time progressed, then I became a state rep. Really got involved when you see, to be quite honest, Charles, you get upset about something and you want to change it. You have to step up and do that. So that's exactly what happened locally. And I guess that's why now I'm the leader, too.
What was that defining moment? I always call it the kick the dog moment, when somebody does something so egregious that makes you go out, get the signatures, and make that run for higher office. What was that incident or that policy or that event that made you take that next step forward beyond being mayor? Yeah,
well, to get even on council, it was at a local business on Main Street, and it all surfaced around a sandwich board in front of my business. And so it's something as simple as that. You know, I wanted to grow my business, and that was a way that I felt I could market it, and the city was not allowing it to happen. So it went forward and changed the ordinance. While I was the mayor, here we are in Savannah, Northwest Illinois, and we have lost our hospital. Our school has consolidated. We've lost manufacturing. We've lost our railroad hub. We've lost our Army depot. And I said to the rep at the time, I'm here to represent the people of Illinois. I don't care about your politics, but I care about Illinois, and please don't forget us. I know we're the most northern part of your district, smallest voter pool. And he did. So when I was approached to run, it was an easy decision to step forward and flip that seat.
And then you've been grinding away ever since to get up to being leader. And that is quite the effort because, as you said, all the districts are sort of equal in population. But in regards to power and sway, I think we all know Chicago certainly has that. And being in the super minority party, moving up the ranks there, I suppose there's a little less competition, but the fight is just as fierce, right?
Yeah, it is. To be the leader is an elected position within your caucus, as well as the speaker. So we have to, there's 40 of us in the House, 78 are in the Republican side, 78 in the Dem side. So you have to be able to, build relationships and collaborate and convince your caucus that you're the best one going forward. So I've been lucky. This is my second term that I've been elected by my peers to be in that position. And it's difficult, for sure. Then you're getting it on, you're putting yourself out there as the leader. You get hit by both sides. Once, you're just the polar opposite of my politics, or you're not doing enough. And how can you do more? So it's challenging, but certainly I've enjoyed it and look forward to getting back to Springfield to see what we can do to collaborate, which, Charles, has become a dirty word in the outside world. But I still represent parts of the state, Northwest Illinois, that has needs. And so it's important for me to continue to, talk loudly about the issues that are causing harm, but also try to bring things to the district that are going to be helpful and help our part of the district grow.
And you mentioned collaborate, and of course, you're referring to the divide between both sides of the aisle with nearly half as many members as the Democrats. To get any part of your legislation advanced forward or anything for a red district, so to speak, has got to be exceptionally tough. Are there people across the aisle who sort of sympathize with your plight, or as you said, it's sort of a dirty word. Has it gotten so divisive in Illinois now where it's really difficult to advance anything forward from the Republican side?
Yeah, it's drastically changed since I was first in 2017. Even this, which is amazing because that's not that long ago. There are a group of Republicans and Democrats that do try to bring forward and have bipartisan bills. But one of the things that a lot of the public doesn't understand or even know, for that matter, is to have any bill called forward on the House floor. You might get it out of committee, or you might get it called in committee because you can ask the chairman of a committee to have it come forward. But for it to come to the floor, Speaker Welch requires 60 Democrat votes. So that in itself makes collaboration hard because you have to convince 60 Democrats first. It takes a little more work from our side, but we're not afraid of the work. And there are members on the other side that you would call moderate, I guess, or more common sense, not as far left as politics has gone, far left and right, that want to be helpful for some.
And to sort of shine a little light the other way, again, some folks have said that there's the reputation of being the party of no. I remember you've addressed this before, where you certainly don't want the Republican caucus in the Illinois House to be known as the party of no. You do want to work on common sense legislation that benefits everybody, right?
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely right. That was one of the big initiatives. And that's sometimes a different mindset even within my own caucus, to be quite honest. But we hear, if we're complaining about something, you'll hear from people that disagree with us typically. Well, what are you going to do about it? What's your idea? So that was one of the things that we did right away was have working groups, because then again, we're not usually asked to be on bipartisan working groups by the speakers. So we started our own working group similar to them. And from that have put out packages of legislation, whether that was concerning ethics, fair maps, human trafficking, tax relief, public safety, overall working families. How can we produce more people, to raise our tax base compared to our tax rate? So we have all of these, and we put it right there on our website, and anybody can check it out. And I think it's important that we have solutions rather than just complain about it. Now, there is some things you'll definitely find us just complaining about, and that's, you talk about the budget. Why not have your own budget? Well, we don't have access to all of the agencies' information to have that. We could look at the old budget and figure out, well, how do we cut this or how do we grow this? But if you don't look at state policy in a more of a holistic approach, especially when it comes to tax reform, to piecemeal it could make it worse. So we need to really get serious and look at, why are our property taxes so high? Why do we have to continue to pay more to a growing government? And for me, on my side, that is one of our core values, is to shrink the size of government. And typically when government's in charge, it doesn't always pan out.
Now, when you talked about property taxes, of course, locally, property taxes fund the schools. A large, substantial portion goes to funding schools. You mentioned school consolidation in your area. Now, was that done as a cost-saving measure or as a way to sort of expand the tax base so they could bring in more money? I
would say it was a combination of things, of population leaving, cost savings. So to have less buildings is certainly less overhead. So it's a combination of things. And in several, I would say, more rural or downstate, even though we're in Northwest Illinois, I consider still downstate, but those outside of the collar counties and Cook County, we see a lot of consolidation with our public schools. And it really is typically about the loss of students and the cost to having multiple buildings. Now, in some areas, and your listening area, they choose to continue to keep smaller schools open within their own taxes, whether it's through a referendum. And I'm all for local control if that's something they decide. But we shouldn't be making it harder for schools to lower their tax levy if that's possible. And we did it several years. 2017 passed evidence-based funding model. More money is going into our schools based on need rather than just the number of students, because obviously our need is probably very different than Naperville. It shouldn't be a per student, but it's not working, in my opinion, the way that it needs to, because I'm not a big fan of just throwing money at an issue. DCFS is a great example of that. DOC, others, throwing more money at an issue doesn't solve the problem. So I think we need to revisit our evidence-based funding model and make sure that it's working the way it's supposed to. So we don't have to raise our local property taxes.
And you brought up DCFS. Recently, there has been a little bit more controversy. DCFS in Illinois always seems to have something pop up every couple of years that makes everybody draw attention to, oh no, we have a problem with the system. We need to do something to help these kids. We need to do something to help the staff. But then it also seems like nothing is ever really done about it. Can you describe briefly, like, the most recent thing that has come up in regards to, I believe, some research that was done and suggestions that you're hoping somebody will listen to and maybe you guys can get done to get some corrective measures put in place? Yeah,
and the safety of our children is not a partisan issue. The most recent that came to light, really, Beth Hunsdorfer with Capital News has been a real champion in bringing this forward. There was a foster child, a young girl under our care in the state of Illinois. Mackenzie Felmley, 18 years old, was she was a subject of cruelty. They discovered that she was, doctors had first diagnosed her with a blood clot, but her body told a different story. Severe dehydration, multiple bruises all over her body, and she was only 90 pounds. As this case goes on, you then discover that one of her caseworkers had several orders of protection on alleging harassment, abuse, threatening violence against them, copy-pasting reports on visits, really a lot of inaction that was done here. And then you go even further, and you discover that there's been 1,200 child deaths and 3,000 serious injuries during this time in administration, when Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart sponsored a law when he was serving for mandating transparency within DCFS, and they have to publicly release incident-specific reports for every child death or serious injury. So we have 1,200 child deaths and 3,000 serious injuries. No reports have been brought forward. So since 2018, DCFS has not followed the law, not one time. The governor says, well, we have replaced the director. We have put more money into it. There's been 15 directors in 20 years. So obviously they get hired, go in there, whether they're not empowered or given the tools, but new directors and more money is not keeping our children safe. I think, we're not in session right now, but if we were in session, you would see an outcry from both Republicans and Democrats talking about this issue. I hope that this gets brought up during veto session. It certainly should. We have several members that work closely within committees, Republicans and Democrats, in the House and the Senate, working together to come up with different ideas on how to reform DCFS.
And
our champion, go ahead.
And you would have thought that, because you mentioned 2018, again, in 2019, the AJ Friend death occurred, in which DCFS workers were even prosecuted and I believe are serving prison time for their neglect in that case. You'd have thought that would have sort of been the bellwether moment for DCFS to be, we have people allegedly not doing their jobs and not protecting the kids. Why do you think that an incident like that didn't trigger an overhaul of the system?
That's a very good question. It certainly did promote more conversations within the General Assembly. And we have filed bills on AJ's, actually for AJ's law, concerning, abuse and neglect of a child that is, under our care. So we certainly have things DCFS workers also aren't always safe, as we know. We had Pam Knight in our area that was killed. Certainly a reason that I got involved right when I first got elected in DCFS issues. And since then, Deidre Silas, whether it's are they being protected? Is their caseload too much? Is there a better way for them to manage their caseload? There's several different things that could be done. Temporary foster home licenses. Why are these foster care workers not being properly vetted before we put children into their care? There's some real common sense solutions, in my opinion, without standing behind the DCFS doors that could be done. As a matter of fact, we get calls often from DCFS workers themselves with ideas. And that's sometimes how some of our bills come forward.
Illinois House Minority Leader Toni McCombie, thank you so much for joining us this morning. If anything advances forward, obviously, on that or any of the issues, feel free to get a hold of us. Glad to have you on the program this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully we can talk after veto and we can discuss what happens there in October.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's In the Know. The program returns next week at this time with another great conversation with someone from your community.